Have you noticed how easy it's become to drift through your days without feeling fully in control? That feeling doesn't come from lack of intelligence, talent, or capability. It comes from never being trained to be mentally strong, to choose instead of react. You start the day with a plan, then one message, one delay, one unexpected problem, and suddenly you're reacting instead of leading. By evening, you feel busy, but not in control. This isn't a new problem. Long before smartphones, social media, or modern stress, people were already wrestling with the same weakness, losing command of the mind, absorbing everyone else's opinions, emotions, and chaos. The ancient Stoics trained for the opposite, to remain calm, steady, and decisive while everything around them tried to pull them off center. Marcus Aurelius, a Roman emperor who lived under war, betrayal, and constant pressure, put it plainly. You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. That isn't a quote meant to inspire you for a moment. It's a weapon, a discipline, a way to move through chaos without being shaken by it. Stoicism doesn't make life easy. It makes you powerful, like reinforced concrete. Plain concrete can hold weight, but under real strain, it cracks. Add a steel frame inside, and it holds under pressure without breaking. In this video, you're going to learn 11 brutal Stoic laws designed to build that kind of strength. The kind that makes you hard to move, powerful, and commanding. If you apply what you're about to hear, you don't just feel better. You move differently. You react less. You think more clearly. You stay steady when it matters. People notice that kind of presence. It's calm. It's controlled. It's magnetic. Before we begin, set an intention. If you're genuinely committed to growth, don't treat this like something you casually watch and move past. Let it be something you engage with. Stay present. Let the ideas sink in. When a principle resonates, acknowledge it. Leave a comment. Mark the moment. And if someone comes to mind who could benefit from this kind of clarity and strength, share it with them. Most importantly, stay with it. What you're about to hear is designed to build, layer by layer. Every part matters, especially for the moments when clarity and courage are needed most. This is an opportunity to train your mind. Let's begin. Why Stoicism existed, and who it was for. In the ancient world, philosophy was not decoration, it was preparation. Before you were trusted with power, command, wealth, or responsibility, you were trained in how to govern yourself. That is why Stoicism was taught to emperors, generals, senators, and statesmen, not because they were elite, but because instability at the top carries consequences. A person ruled by impulse cannot rule others. A mind pulled around by emotion cannot hold a kingdom together. The foundational principle was simple. Master yourself before you attempt to master anything else. Self-command came first. Without it, authority collapsed into reactivity, and power became dangerous rather than effective. Stoicism trained future rulers to remain unshakable. If emotion governs you, someone else can. If your reactions are predictable, they can be provoked, steered, and used against you. The Stoics understood this clearly. Their discipline was built around one central skill: the ability to pause, choose, and act deliberately instead of reacting unconsciously. This is where Stoicism intersects with later thinkers like Machiavelli. Both were concerned with power, not as theory, but as reality. Machiavelli wrote for princes, not the common man. Stoicism was taught to future emperors for the same reason. These were not moral lectures. They were observations about human behavior, how people react under fear, praise, threat, or pressure, and how authority is either preserved or lost through emotional control. This was not deception, it was clarity. A system based on how human beings actually behave, especially at an unconscious level. The Stoics recognized that reaction is the doorway to control. When you react automatically, you can be managed. When you choose your response, you become difficult to move, difficult to manipulate, and difficult to destabilize. Marcus Aurelius became emperor in 161 AD and ruled for nearly 20 years through war on multiple fronts, political betrayal, the Antonine Plague, and chronic illness. His position did not allow emotional indulgence. It required steadiness, restraint, and judgment under pressure. He spent years leading from military camps, writing late at night after long days of command. Those writings became meditations, never meant for publication. They were private instructions, a training record, a manual for self-governance. Marcus was educated in rhetoric, logic, law, mathematics, and languages. Philosophy came first because without mastery of the mind, none of the others could be trusted. One of his most influential teachers, Junius Rusticus, trained him to remove excess from thought and language. No ornament, no self-pity, no excuse. Only clarity, correction, and return to discipline. If you read Meditations, you do not see a man seeking inspiration. You see a ruler conditioning himself not to react, not to drift, not to be ruled by emotion. Stoicism was training for authority, starting with authority over the self. What follows are the laws that discipline produced. Number 1. Embrace discomfort. Discomfort is not here to harm you, it's here to strengthen you. The Stoics understood this deeply. While most people are taught to avoid strain and seek ease, they train themselves to move toward difficulty with awareness and intention. Because every moment of resistance carries something valuable inside it. Think about your own life for a moment. The moments that shaped you didn't come when everything was smooth and comfortable. They came when life demanded more of you than you expected, when you had to decide whether to rise or retreat. This is why the Stoics treated discomfort like an ally, not something to fear, but something to engage. When resistance appears, it's not a sign you're on the wrong path. It's a signal that growth is happening. And the next time you don't feel like showing up, training, or pushing forward, pause and recognize what's really happening. That hesitation isn't a warning. It's the doorway. Your body is not wise. It is protective. Left alone, it will always choose comfort over command. Your impulses are not enemies. They are an untrained horse. If you don't hold the reins, it decides where you go. For most of human history, survival depended on conserving energy, avoiding unnecessary risk, and choosing safety over effort. Which is why your nervous system, ancient and efficient, evolved to keep you alive, not to make you strong. If you let your body decide, it will always choose comfort. And if you let your unconscious mind lead, it will always choose safety. Growth begins when you intervene, when you take command instead of obeying that impulse, and recognize resistance for what it truly is, a signal to engage, a chance for growth. Every obstacle becomes a chance to sharpen your will. And that is the rule. Apply it directly. That workout when you're tired is not a mistake or a burden. It is where character is carved. This is exactly how the Stoics trained, and it is why, especially when you do not feel like it, you go. Because those moments matter more than the easy ones. Over time, something shifts. You stop being pushed around by small things. You react less. You stand steadier. Discomfort stops feeling threatening and becomes familiar, and that familiarity is the beginning of real strength. You begin to move through the world with more calm, less urgency, and greater control. Challenges stop shaking you. Pressure no longer scrambles you. You become harder to disturb, not because life is easier, but because you are stronger. Choose the small discomfort. Choose it again tomorrow. That is how discipline is built, how character compounds, and how freedom is earned. Understand this clearly. This is how warriors are made. Not by running, not by negotiating with weakness, but by standing where resistance lives. The moment you want to turn away is the moment the work begins. Let that be your rule. Let it be your line in the sand. Discomfort is my training ground. Step into it again and again until pressure no longer bends you. Number 2, stop being ruled by your emotions. How often do your emotions control your day? One rude comment lands, and you carry it for hours. Someone changes plans last minute, and your mood drops with it. A driver cuts you off, and you feel the heat rise before you've even decided. Nothing catastrophic happened. Nevertheless, your entire mood changed. That's emotion taking control. Emotion gives you information. You decide what to do with that information. If you don't make that decision consciously, it gets made for you. That's being a puppet of your emotions. This is exactly what the Stoics train to prevent. When your reactions are easy to predict, they are easy to provoke. And when they can be provoked, they can be used to steer you. Epictetus understood this with brutal clarity. He began life as a slave, and he warned that if another person can trigger your anger, fear, or withdrawal at will, then you are not free. Whoever can anger you becomes your master. Marcus Aurelius returned to this principle obsessively in his private writings. Again and again, under different conditions, he corrected the same impulse in himself. Not to react, not to dramatize, not to let emotion decide his actions. Not because emotion is wrong, but because emotion is not judgment. When you act while emotion is flooding the body, perspective narrows. You speak too quickly. You decide too fast. You move while the mind is spinning stories that feel real but have not been tested. Later comes regret. Regret for what you said, what you did, what you damaged in a moment that passed too quickly. Stoicism does not teach you to suppress emotion. It teaches you to separate feeling from action. You can feel anger without acting in anger. You could feel fear without retreating. You can feel sadness without collapsing. The rule is simple and uncompromising. Emotion can inform you. It does not get to control you. When emotion surges, you pause. You let the wave pass through without obeying it. Then you move deliberately, from clarity instead of impulse. That pause is not weakness, and it is not hesitation. It is control. It is the moment you stop being pulled by the strings and start choosing your response. Remember this without exception. Emotion speaks. You decide. If you don't choose, you react. And when you react, you are easy to control. So say it clearly. Live it daily. I feel. And I choose. Do not be a puppet of your emotions. That is what it means to be ungovernable. So next time you feel triggered, don't react immediately. Pause, breathe, let the surge pass. Then act only once you are clear. And when you practice this consistently, something changes in the way you move through the world. You become steadier, calmer, harder to shake. You stop being pulled off course by every comment, every delay, every emotional spike. People notice it, they feel it. In a world driven by reaction and noise, that kind of emotional control is rare. It's grounding, it's commanding, it's magnetic. You don't get pushed around by small things anymore. You don't waste energy on what doesn't deserve it. You act with intention instead of impulse. That is emotional strength. That is Stoic freedom. Real growth begins when emotion stops ruling you and you become the one in command. Number 3. Stop expecting fairness. Think about the last time you felt wronged. You did the work, followed the rules, or acted with integrity, and it still didn't go your way. Expecting fairness quietly weakens you, because the moment you believe life owes you symmetry or reward, you hand your stability to circumstances you don't control. You work hard and get overlooked. You act with integrity and still lose. You do the right thing and pay the price anyway. And almost immediately, the mind begins to protest. This shouldn't be happening. That protest feels justified, even moral. But the Stoics saw it for what it really was. A trap that freezes movement and drains strength. Marcus Aurelius ruled in the middle of injustice he could not instantly fix. Corruption he could not erase overnight. Betrayal he could not prevent. Suffering he could not shield everyone from. He did not argue with reality or waste energy narrating how things should have been. Instead, he trained himself to ask a different, more useful question. What is required of me now? That means, what is the next right action? What can I control here? What do I do in the next 5 minutes? That question keeps you moving. The moment you fixate on fairness, movement stops. You replay events. You rehearse injustice. You stay lodged in emotional residue while time moves forward without you. Life does not respond to fairness, it responds to strength. That doesn't mean becoming cruel or indifferent. It means refusing to waste energy protesting reality instead of dealing with it. Fairness is a beautiful idea, but when you cling to it as an expectation, it becomes a liability. The Stoics never expected life to treat them gently. They expected difficulty, loss, betrayal, and change, and because they expected it, they were prepared for it. Strength grows where expectation ends. So the Stoic rule is blunt and practical. Remove the word should from reality. When something feels unfair, stop narrating it. Stop replaying it. Decide your next move and take it. Action restores agency. Motion restores strength. Complaint does neither. Seneca understood this clearly when he wrote that sometimes simply continuing to live with dignity is an act of courage, especially when life seems unjust. The Stoic response is not bitterness, it is responsibility. Not because everything is your fault, but because every response is your move. So next time life doesn't reward your effort, doesn't match your integrity, or doesn't make sense, don't wait for fairness to arrive. It won't. Decide how you will respond. Then move. When you do this consistently, something changes. You stop feeling stalled by circumstances. You stop losing energy to resentment. You become harder to destabilize, calmer under pressure, and more capable of acting when others freeze. In a world obsessed with fairness and outrage, that grounded refusal to complain becomes a form of quiet power. Fairness is not promised, but freedom is earned. One deliberate response at a time. Remember this clearly. Life is not obligated to be fair, and waiting for it to be will only delay your strength. The Stoics did not ask for justice from events. They demanded discipline from themselves. Let this be your rule when things feel unjust. Remove expectation, take responsibility, and move. That is how stability is built in an unstable world. Number 4. Focus only on what you can control. You're not exhausted because you do too much. You're exhausted because you spend mental energy on outcomes, reactions, and opinions you can't control. This creates constant mental noise, a background tension that never fully shuts off. And over time it drains focus, energy, and clarity. The good news is simple. This is not your personality. It's a habit, and habits can be trained. Epictetus saw this with brutal clarity. He divided life into 2 categories: what is within your control and what is not. Confuse the two, and anxiety becomes permanent. Try to manage what lies outside your command, and you will feel powerless no matter how hard you work. This distinction is simple, but it is unforgiving. Most people understand it intellectually and ignore it behaviorally. Marcus Aurelius trained this distinction relentlessly. When events went badly, and they often did, he did not chase control where none existed. He narrowed his attention to the only domain that never abandoned him: his judgment and his actions. Everything else fluctuates. Everything else decays. Everything else lies to you by promising certainty it cannot deliver. You can see the modern failure pattern everywhere. Someone criticizes you, and instead of deciding how you will act, your mind fixates on how you were perceived. You imagine correcting them. You replay their tone. You wonder how others interpreted the exchange. None of this improves your position. All of it drains energy. The Stoic refuses this spiral, not out of indifference but out of discipline. He understands that other people's opinions are external, unstable, and impossible to secure. Trying to manage them is like trying to hold water in your hands. The harder you squeeze, the faster it slips away. So the rule is precise and practical. If it is within your control, act. If it is not, release it. No debate, no internal commentary, no rehearsal. Most people live like the moon. Their emotional state reflects whatever happens around them. Praise lifts them. Criticism darkens them. Approval energizes them. Disapproval drains them. The Stoic trains to be the sun. The sun does not adjust itself to passing clouds. It emits regardless. That steadiness is not detachment, and it is not coldness, it is command. So next time you feel tension rising, stop and ask yourself one question: is this actually mine to control? If the answer is yes, act decisively. If the answer is no, let it go without explanation or resistance. When you practice this consistently, something changes. Your mind becomes quieter. Your actions become cleaner. You stop leaking energy into imaginary battles and unchangeable outcomes. You become harder to destabilize, calmer under pressure, and more effective where it actually matters. You don't become strong because you control everything. You become strong because you stop trying to. And that quiet certainty, that grounded focus on what is truly yours, is what makes you unshakable. Number 5. Train for hardship before it arrives. Strength is not built in moments of pressure. It is built long before pressure appears. If you wait for life to force you to grow, you will always be reacting instead of preparing. Pressure arrives suddenly. If you haven't trained for it, it decides for you. The Stoics refuse that position. Instead of waiting for hardship to arrive unannounced, they practiced it deliberately. They trained the mind through voluntary hardship, simple living, intentional discomfort, controlled challenge. Not because suffering made them virtuous, and not because hardship was noble, but because preparedness is freedom. When difficulty is familiar, it loses its power to shock you. When discomfort is expected, it stops dictating your behavior. Seneca practiced this even when wealth made comfort easy. He deliberately rehearsed loss, eating plain food, wearing simple clothing, stripping life down on purpose. So his mind stopped panicking at the thought of having less. He wasn't punishing himself. He was removing dependence. He understood that the more comfort you rely on, the more fragile you become when it disappears. Comfort is not neutral. It quietly trains expectation. The more you indulge it, the lower your tolerance becomes. Over time, effort feels excessive, inconvenience feels unbearable. Then life tightens, circumstances change, pressure increases, and what should be manageable feels overwhelming. Not because the situation is extreme, but because tolerance was never trained. The Stoics inverted this pattern completely. They chose hardship before it was imposed, cold instead of warmth, silence instead of noise, effort instead of ease. They did not dramatize this. They did not romanticize it. They treated it as training, governed by a simple law. What you choose to endure voluntarily loses its power over you. Marcus Aurelius trained in a different direction. His hardship was constant friction, delay, criticism, incompetence, disrespect, and insult. Not dramatic attacks, but the daily grind of being tested by other people. He practiced enduring irritation without reacting, not because it didn't affect him, but because he refused to let it decide his internal state. When someone insulted him publicly, he didn't snap back. He didn't rush to defend his ego. He noticed the surge and did nothing yet. That pause was deliberate. Most insults are designed to provoke movement. They only work if you react. Silence denies them fuel. It keeps you centered while the other person reveals themselves. Marcus understood that authority is lost the moment emotion takes over, so he let the moment pass unless a response was genuinely useful. When someone tried to undermine him or belittle him, he made a simple distinction. If responding added clarity, order, or direction, he responded, calmly and precisely. If responding only satisfied emotion, he didn't. He refused to trade long-term authority for short-term relief. Restraint in those moments was not weakness. It was control. But the most important training happened in quieter moments, the ones most people overlook. Marcus dealt constantly with low-grade irritation, slow people, careless remarks, passive aggression, small acts of disrespect. This is where most people get worn down, not by major conflict, but by 1,000 small frictions that slowly pull them off center. Marcus trained himself not to personalize these moments. He treated them like weather, unpleasant but impersonal. He didn't ask, "Why are they like this?" He asked, "Why would I give this access to my nervous system?" Instead of tightening, he relaxed. Instead of escalating, he stayed neutral. Instead of replaying the interaction, he let it end where it ended. That was the discipline. Over time, this trained his nervous system to remain steady under disrespect. The body learned that irritation did not require action. The mind learned that dignity did not require defense. And because he didn't react, people lost the ability to move him. Nothing small could shake him because nothing small was allowed to decide his state. This is what real strength looks like in daily life. Not domination, not intimidation, but quiet unavailability to manipulation. Rude people, bullies, careless words. They only have power if you give it to them. Marcus trained himself to remain intact instead. He didn't need to win every exchange. He needed to remain ungoverned. So apply this while conditions are calm. Eat simply when indulgence is available. Train when tired, not only when motivated. Sit with boredom instead of escaping it. Remove small comforts deliberately, not to suffer, but to strengthen tolerance. Practice this consistently, and something changes. Discomfort stops feeling threatening. Hardship becomes familiar. Familiarity breeds steadiness. Then, when difficulty finally arrives, as it always does, you don't panic. You don't collapse. You don't waste energy resisting reality. You meet it with quiet readiness. In a world addicted to ease, that kind of preparation is rare, and it gives you an advantage that doesn't announce itself, but is felt in the way you move. Calm under pressure, composed in uncertainty, unshakable when others break. That is what it means to be ready. Number 6, commit to the process, not the outcome. How often does your mood depend on how things turn out? You do the work and wait for the result. You send the message and watch for the response. You give effort, then check whether it paid off. And the moment the outcome shifts, so do you. Outcomes are unstable. Your conduct doesn't have to be. The Stoics understood this clearly. That's why they never measured themselves by winning or losing, praise or recognition. They returned to harder questions, the ones that don't flatter you. Did I show up fully? Did I act with discipline? Did I behave in line with my values, regardless of result? When conduct becomes the standard, emotional volatility fades. You stop swinging between confidence and doubt. You become consistent, and consistency is power. If you build your identity on outcomes, your confidence rises and falls with things you don't control. When results go well, you feel capable. When they don't, you question your worth. One win lifts you. One setback unravels you. That instability isn't weakness, it's misplaced measurement. Marcus Aurelius refused to live this way. As emperor, he saw better than most how unreliable outcomes truly are. Wars shifted unexpectedly. Advisors failed him. Plagues spread despite preparation. Results were never guaranteed, so he anchored himself elsewhere. Again and again in meditations, he returned to the same internal standard. Not did it work, not was I praised, but did I act correctly? That question grounded him. It removed anxiety. It gave him stability in conditions he couldn't control. This shift changes everything. When conduct becomes your measure, failure no longer destroys you, and success no longer intoxicates you. You stop riding emotional highs and lows and start moving with steadiness instead. You become harder to shake because fewer things are allowed to define you. Epictetus expressed this simply. Freedom comes from disregarding what lies beyond your control. Effort is always yours. Outcomes never fully are. So the Stoic rule is firm. Your duty is effort, not outcome. You show up whether you are rewarded or ignored. You act correctly whether you are seen or unseen. You do the work whether it pays off immediately or not. Over time, this builds something rare. Reliability to yourself. You know you will act well regardless of circumstances, and that reliability becomes a quiet form of power. So next time anxiety pulls you toward the result, bring your attention back to what is actually yours. Are you showing up fully? Is your effort honest? Do your actions reflect who you intend to be? Do that, and let the rest unfold as it will. When you live this way, something shifts. You stop being desperate for outcomes. You stop tying your worth to validation. You become grounded in the work itself. In a world obsessed with results, that focus is rare. and it makes you calm, resilient, and difficult to disturb. Because when your standard is conduct, not outcome, you are no longer fragile, you are steady. And steadiness becomes strength. This is the discipline the Stoics return to daily, not asking whether things worked, but whether they acted well. Anchor here, effort is mine, results are not. Number 7. Remember that time is finite. How often do you tell yourself you'll deal with it later? Later you'll have the conversation. Later you'll take the work seriously. Later you'll change what you already know isn't right. And later, quietly, becomes never. Urgency creates clarity, yet most people live as if time were unlimited. They delay what feels uncomfortable. They tolerate situations they've already outgrown. Not because they don't know better, but because delay feels safer than decision. Lives are rarely undone by catastrophe. They are worn down by postponement. Marcus Aurelius refused that illusion. He reminded himself, again and again, that life could end at any moment, not to frighten himself, but to sharpen his judgment. His words were meant to cut through hesitation, not comfort it. You could leave life right now. Let that determine what you do, say, and think. This was not morbid reflection. It was a discipline of attention, a way of stripping life down to what actually matters and discarding what does not. The Stoics practiced memento mori. Remember you will die. Not to become grim, but to become awake. Awareness of death clarifies priority. It exposes how much energy is spent on trivial concerns. It reveals how often later is simply avoidance wearing a reasonable mask. Seneca understood this clearly. He wrote that it is not that we have little time to live, but that we waste much of it. Time doesn't disappear all at once. It leaks away in small decisions to wait, to defer, to look away. The Stoic did not rush, but he did not drift. He understood that every delay is a choice, and that repeated inaction quietly closes doors that never announce when they are shutting. So the rule is uncompromising. Act as if time is borrowed. Not frantic, not reckless. Decisive. When you notice yourself postponing something important, a conversation you've avoided, a discipline you keep delaying, a commitment you already know you must make, recognize what is happening. This is not patience. It is hesitation, and hesitation compounds. Then act. Not someday. Not when conditions feel perfect. Now. This awareness does not make you anxious. It makes you precise. You stop wasting energy on what doesn't matter. You stop tolerating what drains you. You move with intention instead of drift. And when you live this way, something changes, both in how you are perceived and how you experience yourself. You become focused, grounded, present. In a world that endlessly postpones, that kind of urgency carries weight. Time awareness does not rush you, it steadies you. Because when you remember that time is finite, you stop sleeping through your life and start moving through it with purpose. Number 8. Live by virtue, not approval. How often do you notice yourself adjusting? You soften your words. You hold something back. You act differently depending on who's watching. Not because you're dishonest, but because approval feels safer than standing alone. Approval is unstable currency. Praise today, silence tomorrow, ridicule the day after. When your behavior depends on recognition, your character becomes porous. You bend slightly here, you adjust there. Over time you fragment, and something essential erodes: self-trust. You stop knowing who you are without feedback. Marcus Aurelius rejected this entirely. To him, virtue was not performance, it was alignment. Doing the right thing even when no one is watching, especially then. He trained himself to care about one question only. Is this right? Not will this be praised. Not will this be noticed. Not will this be rewarded, just, is it correct? Most people live externally calibrated lives. They measure themselves through reactions, applause, and approval. When praise appears, they feel solid. When it disappears, they doubt themselves. Their confidence rises and falls with forces they do not control. The Stoic refused this dependency. He understood that approval is unreliable, but integrity is not. One is noise, the other is structure. So the rule is simple and severe. Integrity over applause. Keep your word when it costs you. Act correctly when it is inconvenient. Choose principle over comfort, silence over validation. This is not about being perfect. It is about being principled. Doing the right thing is often the harder thing. It is easier to impress than to be honest. Easier to perform than to stand alone. Easier to adjust yourself than to hold your line. But every time you choose what is right over what is easy, something solidifies inside you. You become someone your future self can respect. Seneca lived by this discipline. He wrote that he governed his life as if the whole world could see both his actions and his thoughts. Not for image, but for coherence. A life built this way does not collapse under pressure, because it is not propped up by approval. It stands on integrity. So the next time you feel the urge to perform, to soften the truth, to adjust yourself for acceptance, pause, ask the only question that matters. Is this aligned with who I intend to be? Then act from that place, even if it costs you comfort, even if it brings no immediate reward. When you live this way, something fundamental changes. You stop bending, you stop performing, you stop drifting, you move through the world with quiet solidity. In a culture obsessed with image and validation, that kind of alignment is rare. It carries weight. Because once approval stops controlling you, you no longer need the crowd. And paradoxically, that is when others begin to feel your presence. You become solid. Number 9. Take radical responsibility. What's the first thing you do when something goes wrong? You explain it, you replay it, you think about who caused it, and while you do, nothing moves. Blame delays action. Responsibility creates movement. The Stoics understood this distinction clearly. They did not spend time asking who caused the problem. They asked what needed to be done next. That difference decides whether you stay stuck or move forward. Not everything that happens to you is your fault. The Stoics were not naive about injustice, randomness, or misfortune. They lived through betrayal, illness, exile, and war. But they understood something crucial. Blame weakens response time. The moment blame enters the mind, attention turns backward. You narrate what happened. You rehearse the offense. You assign fault. And while you do, energy drains and action stalls. Marcus Aurelius refused this pattern. When problems appeared, he didn't dwell on who caused them. He didn't indulge explanation or resentment. He asked one forward-facing question: what is required of me now? That question kept him in motion. It preserved agency. It prevented emotional stagnation. To the Stoic, responsibility was never about guilt or self-punishment. It was about command. About recognizing that while you may not control what happens, you always control how quickly and decisively you respond. Blame hands that control away. Responsibility takes it back. So the rule is blunt. No blame, only action. When something goes wrong, you don't dramatize it. You don't rehearse it emotionally. You don't assign fault while time passes. You acknowledge reality and decide your next move immediately. This doesn't deny pain. It prevents paralysis. Pain can be felt without surrendering agency. Responsibility is not self-attack. It is self-command. So the next time something disrupts your plans, disappoints you, or catches you off guard, notice the instinct to explain, accuse, or justify. Interrupt it. Ask instead what action moves you forward, then take that action, even if it's small. Especially if it's small, because movement restores control. When you live this way, something shifts. Problems stop feeling paralyzing. Setbacks stop defining you. You recover faster. You adapt quicker. You become difficult to derail. In a world where many people wait for fairness, apology, or rescue, radical responsibility makes you decisive. And decisiveness is strength, because when you stop asking who is to blame and start asking what is required now, you stay in motion, and motion, sustained over time, is how power is built. Number 10. Act first, motivation follows. How often do you wait to feel ready? You wait for energy. You wait for motivation. You wait for the right mood. And while you wait, nothing changes. Waiting to feel ready is not patience, it is avoidance. Discipline does not come from emotion, it comes from action. You begin, and then motivation appears. Most people reverse this order and never notice the mistake. They wait for the feeling first, and the feeling never comes. The Stoics did not wait, they acted first. They understood something modern culture resists admitting. Motivation follows action, not the other way around. Waiting to feel ready sounds reasonable. It feels sensible, but it keeps you stationary. Marcus Aurelius wrote reminders to himself that sound almost harsh by modern standards, not because he lacked compassion, but because he understood human avoidance. His instructions were simple and direct. Begin. Do the work. Stop arguing. He knew the mind will always generate reasons to delay if you let it speak first. When you don't want to train, that feeling is not insight. It is not guidance. It is not wisdom. It is the signal. You go anyway, not shorter, not easier. You go. You complete the session. You leave. When you don't want to work, you begin anyway. When you want to postpone, you start immediately. Action breaks resistance. Thinking feeds it. The Stoics did not worship intensity. They worshipped structure. Intensity rises and falls. Structure endures. Structure carries you through days when emotion is low, energy is absent, and motivation never arrives. That is why discipline survives where inspiration collapses. So the rule is uncompromising. Act first. Think later. The victory is not feeling motivated. The victory is obedience to structure. Showing up when you said you would. Beginning when your mind argues otherwise. Completing what you committed to, regardless of mood. When you live this way, something fundamental changes. You stop negotiating with yourself. You stop waiting for permission from your emotions. You become reliable, and reliability is not flashy, but it is powerful. It builds trust with yourself. It removes hesitation. It creates momentum. Over time, motivation stops being something you chase. It becomes something that follows you. Because when action comes first, discipline stabilizes, and mental strength finally has something solid to stand on. Number 11. Failure is an event. Identity is repetition, what usually happens after something goes wrong. You miss a goal, A relationship ends, a plan collapses, and suddenly it's not just an event, it becomes a story. A breakup doesn't just hurt, it becomes a verdict. A failed project doesn't just end, it becomes a judgment about who you are. A setback doesn't stay a moment, it becomes a definition. This is where people quietly lose themselves, not because something went wrong, but because they let one outcome rewrite their identity. The Stoics trained against this relentlessly. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself again and again that events are external, fleeting, unstable, and never fully under control. What mattered was not what happened, but who he remained while it happened. Loss was not identity. Criticism was not identity. Failure was not identity. They were data. Most people respond to failure by slowing down. They withdraw. They overthink. They pause structure in the name of processing. And while they do, momentum dies. Routine breaks. Identity begins to drift. This is why failure feels permanent, not because it is, but because repetition stops. The Stoic refused this pause. He understood that identity is not declared in moments of success. It is forged in repetition, in what you return to after things don't go your way. The discipline is not dramatic. It is deliberate. So the rule is simple and severe. Events do not define you. Repetition does. Failure is an event. Identity lives in habit, and the action is clear. When something fails, you return to structure immediately. You train the next day. You work the next block. You eat normally. You keep your routine intact. No dramatic reset. No collapse disguised as reflection. You move. Because the fastest way to recover power after failure is to behave as if your identity was never touched in the first place. Over time, this changes how failure lands. It stops feeling like a verdict and starts feeling like information. You are still standing, and that means you are still in command. You remain whole. You remain intact. You continue forward without fragmentation. That is how the Stoics stayed steady while circumstances shifted. That is how identity remains solid, even when outcomes don't cooperate. Understand this and do not forget it. The moment you return to discipline, failure loses its grip. Structure restores identity. Repetition preserves strength. Live by this rule, and nothing that happens to you will ever own you again. Structure is your spine. Repetition is your steel. Understanding is easy. Most people understand far more than they live. Insight comes quickly. Change does not. Because nothing shifts unless something is practiced. These laws are not ideas to agree with. They are pressures already acting on you. Every time you hesitate, every time you delay a hard task, every time emotion pulls you off course, every time discomfort asks you to retreat, that is where Stoicism actually operates. Not in theory, not in reflection, but in repetition. The Stoics did not wait for crises to test their character. They trained inside ordinary days. Cold mornings when discipline mattered, small frustrations that revealed impatience, unseen choices made without applause. That is how steadiness was built. So do not treat this as something you understood. Treat it as something you return to, again and again. Because strength is not decided once. It is practiced daily. If this message resonated, write in the comments, "Today I train." Subscribe and stay close. More lessons.